Because at the end of the day, Singapore is still a good place for East meets West, right?
Yeah.
I think I told someone, I said it's East versus West, and he said, please don't say that. That's like,
All right, welcome to Offscript with Wild and Wise podcast. Today we have a special guest with us, Chien. Chien, welcome to the podcast.
hello, hi,
Welcome,
hi.
dude.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're going to dive into a couple of things today, but first, congrats on the event this week.
Thanks. Super AI was fun. It was busy, but now just recuperating.
Nice. And what, this year, second year?
Yeah,
for
second
Super
year,
AI?
about 7,000 attendees for that, going quite fast, and then on to our next conference coming up in October now for crypto.
Very cool. What was the big highlight for you?
Don't know, I've been planning it for months. I guess the highlight was that it finished.
Done lah. Enough.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think a lot of learnings from the conference in general. I mean, got to listen to a few of the talks, but also, running around for work. Glad that we hit the targets that we want to, so that's good.
So there will be a year 3.
There will be a year 3. Yes, we've already locked it in actually. We signed MBS already. It's June 10th and 11th.
2026.
Yeah, 2026.
Wow, amazing.
So
Yeah.
I think we're excited for that.
Nice. I mean, I was there for the 2
Second
days.
day. We went for both.
I was there for 2 days.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
okay.
there first
Okay,
day
great.
and the second day.
Yeah.
Good lineup, strong lineup. I
Yeah.
think what's interesting is the number of AI companies, your exhibition areas,
Yep.
right? And the different kind of companies that are building value on this
Yeah.
space. I think that was a massive exhibition area.
I mean, okay, it's massive, it's good. It's like one floor of MBS right now. I think, as I mentioned, we ran another crypto conference, Token 2049. That one's 5 times the size or 4 times the size. We're at about 25,000 people for that. So check that out in October. That's a different scale. But I think in terms of AI, it's still quite nascent. It's still growing, especially in this part of the world. So it's going to take a while, but I think eventually we'll take out all of MBS also. But I mean, I think we always said that crypto is great, it's fantastic, but it's still relatively a smaller community, right? AI touches everything. And so if you look at it over the next few years, I think it's going to be a different scale.
Yeah. And what this year, most of the AI companies that joined you were Southeast Asian companies?
Actually quite global. So the way that we structure our conference is we do look at it from the perspective of trying to always have more international companies. So 20% local, about 80% international. And then I think our themes were 2 main things this year. One is frontier technology. So, AI technologies that are really cool. But secondly, like East meets West. Because at the end of the day, Singapore is still a good place for East meets West, right?
Yeah.
I think I told someone, I said it's East versus West. And he said, please don't say that. That's like, but I mean, look, the Chinese companies can come to Singapore. The Western companies can come here without any fear of their own governments having any reprisal around that, I suppose.
Yeah. No, you get a good balance, right? I saw what Manus was there because you're based here.
Yes.
Really interesting company was doing wayfinding and using AI.
Oh, Orchid Labs, yes.
Killer, and then the robotics guys,
Yes.
obviously, a bunch of that.
But we
So-
want more robotics companies next year. Like, I think next year we're hoping where you'll literally be walking around and be like, oh my gosh, I'm walking around with like
trying to avoid
humanoids
them.
everywhere around instead. So I think that's a main focus for us over the next 12 months to get these, I guess, partners and exhibitors over to the conference.
Oh, congrats and good luck for the next one.
Thanks, appreciate it.
But obviously, you didn't start in AI.
Yes.
You've kind of evolved and your career has kind of twisted and turning. I was quite intrigued when I saw that you came from University of Brigham
Brigham Young University.
University. Because I spent
In Utah.
in Utah. So I spent a little bit of time in Adobe.
Yes, but they have a very big office at the top of the mountain in American Fort where there's a big Adobe campus. there.
Massive. So I spent a lot of time there. So a lot of my
you've
colleagues.
been there?
I've been there, yeah.
Not many people have been there.
I've
was-
never been to.
Between San Jose, Salt Lake, and that,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that campus. So a lot of my colleagues were all Brigham Young.
Yeah.
But you were what? Comms?
Yes.
You were
Comms major.
comms major.
Yeah.
Then you went to finance.
Yeah.
And then you went to the Grab and Ubers.
BYU story though. I mean, how did you end up in?
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up Mormon. I spent about 26 years of my life as Mormon. I mean, still, appreciate religion.
Singapore?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my mom's Mormon, my dad isn't, but that's so you follow what mom dad tells you to do, like, right? And at the end of the day, the whole 2-year mission thing, can talk about that another time, but...
Oh, so
'cause
you did a mission.
Yeah. So I've briefly talked about it before, more from a sales perspective, because, if you spend 2 years selling religion, you can sell anything, right? Like, if you're getting rejected by everyone...
That's true.
Then when you're selling, like,
That's great. Yeah.
products, whether they're financial or technology or conferences or whatnot, it's a bit easier because I mean, if someone's yelling at your face or, there are different scenarios, obviously, where people are less friendly, then you build pretty thick skin, because you're used to rejection.
Yeah.
But no, I majored in comms, but it was actually my third major. I switched it 3 times in uni. So I think I went from psychology.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it in high school. I had watched a few TV shows because that's how you choose your major in university. And then I did that. Didn't want to do a master's or a PhD. So did finance. Then my grades were okay, but my mom was like, oh, you can talk a lot. Why don't you go and do comms or PR or something like that?
Love it.
So I switched to that, realized halfway through I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And then they said, well, you've got too many credits. Please finish up your degree and, get out of here, which is a valid point from their perspective.
Yeah.
But then by chance, got the opportunity to intern at Bloomberg News, had a really good professor who was like, hey, do you want to intern at Bloomberg News? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Right? As a clueless, I guess, college student. I did that. Went well, really enjoyed the intersection between comms and finance. And I was like, oh, I guess I want to do more finance, right? Then I had a friend who was like, hey, you should intern at Goldman. I just finished my internship. I said, they'll never take me. I'm not a finance major. And he said, dude, I major in Arabic. I'm fine. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And they did. I think what they appreciated and what I appreciate about the companies, they like people from different backgrounds, right? So in my team, sure, you have your finance majors, you have your accounting majors, etc. But you also have an English major or a comms major and all that because they want different perspectives. So I spent a couple of years trading swaps. I mean, it's just like, I guess you learn, you get to the job and you learn, right? But I think that's good because then it allows you to question things also. And it allows you to learn something new.
So how do you describe yourself today?
I know I've done maybe a few other things. I think sometimes people say, wow, you've done a lot. But I guess I don't think about it that perspective because I guess I'm doing it, right? And so maybe you don't look at it so granularly, I suppose. I guess I describe myself most of the time as what I'm doing at the current point in time, right? You don't really want to go through your entire resume when you talk to someone the first time you meet them. So, I mean, currently, I'll tell you what. So when I took this job, my mom was like, I have no idea what you're doing. I don't think she knows what I actually do. But I said, look, Mom, at the end of the day, I work for an events company and I run sales. That's all. It's very straightforward, right? So depending on what you're selling, this is a conference, it's a bit different, right? If you're going to say I work in an events company and I do sales, it's a bit simplistic. But in the end, it is what I do, right? But I mean, it's different in the sense of what kind of conference we are, which is frontier technology, which is artificial intelligence, which is crypto, which is Web3, which is blockchain, where it's fascinating because you get to meet people from these, I guess, new companies who are building out new things, right? So it's different from, I don't know, working from an events company that does a baking trade show or something like that. Nothing wrong with that, but just a different type of job or different type of event, I suppose.
Yeah. How do you explain the moment you went from finance to
Uber? Oh, that one was great. That one, I knew she would have an issue with it. But my dad's quite maverick. Left oil in the 80s to join software. Which, I mean, went well for him. But I think most people have been said, why would you leave oil to go into software in the 80s? Because software was nascent at that point in time. So for him, he was like, oh, you should do it. You're young, you can try new things. So only after I signed the offer, and then I was on a holiday with my dad, actually. I was flying back. I called my mom. I was like, hey, guess what? I'm moving home to Singapore. And she said, huh? Why? I was like, I got a job in Singapore. And she said, huh? Where? I'm joining a company called Uber. And her literal next line was, huh? You quit Goldman to join a taxi company? I died it. That was a killer line. I was just trying to say, Mom, it's a $60 billion taxi company. I don't care what kind of taxi company it is. You quit Goldman to join Uber. But I think after a while, she got the idea around it. And then, I think understands now that obviously new technologies exist and new companies exist.
I'm very curious about the new technology bit, right? The conference that you just did, you speak to all these new companies, it's a very new frontier, very new space. What are the one or two things that you notice or observe as you speak with these companies, particularly in terms of how the future might look?
I think the crazy thing about it is that it's very broad, right? Because as you said, these companies are very new and these technologies, I think we said that, with a lot of other technologies, it grows by, and you're in digital, I guess, right? So whether it's every month or every year or every 2 years where it grows. But with AI, it's actually every week or every day, right? And it's very different. So, I mean, again, it depends on, because it's so broad, you cannot cover everything. And so then you look at the things that you're interested in, right? So I think one that I think Ben mentioned was Manus. I think it's interesting because they do something called agentic AI, right? It's essentially like helping you with work that you want to do. So I think I was asking it to do something for me just now. I wanted it to build out a new idea that I had just as a business idea. And you can get it to do everything from either doing a financial plan for you, as in like building out the financial model, or you can say, I want you to build a website for me. And all I gave it were 3 prompts, like 3 sentences, and now it's building it right now. I checked it just now on the way here. I was like, okay, it's still doing it. All these things that you think are tasks that you need to do, whether at home or in the workplace, are not going to be replaced. And it's not going to replace a human. It's not going to replace someone that you have to fire. It's just making it more efficient for you, so that when you do your stuff, you can leave it on to do it, and then you go and do something else at the same time, right? And then I think if you're looking at it in terms of maybe more broad scale, there's a company called Grok there. They do something called LPUs, liquid processing units, which they compete with companies like NVIDIA, etc., and all that. But essentially, like structuring chips in a different way that allows it to run a lot faster, right? So it allows you to process this faster in the future, as an example.
One of my favorite moments of the conference was day one. Menace was on stage.
Oh yes, Tao,
And there was a question from the audience that turned into a customer service kind of session whereby I go, I subscribed to your service and this didn't work. That didn't work. But I think my point there was like, it's so new, right? And people don't realize that this is such a fast evolving space and things are still, I mean, we are literally all of us are in WIP, right? It's all work in progress as well. But I thought that was fascinating moment on that stage.
Yeah, I think with the Q&A, we wanted to do that. We wanted to try that out, especially for something so new. But I guess you would generally think that people would ask a bit more interesting questions.
So what basic questions was it? Interesting meaning?
No,
it was very surface level.
Maybe they couldn't get through normally, so like the conference is the best time.
Let's ask the founder in front of like a couple thousand people, like what my question, my customer service question.
How did you journey through this emotionally? Like, was it just very instinctive, or was it just like opportunity came up and you just kind of went with it? Was it planned? I'm just very curious how you were approaching all this journey.
I think both from a career perspective as well as from a entrepreneurial perspective. I think until a certain stage in my career, it was very, la-di-da. And then I think from an entrepreneurial perspective, it's always been quite as you go, right? I think I've always been a bit free-spirited in a good or bad way. I think my dad will say good way, my mom will say, oh, can you please be a bit more structured? I think how I've gone about it from a career perspective has always been, how can I learn? Or like, where can I learn, right? So, okay, I'll admit the first job, I think when I got the offer from Goldman, my parents said, you better just take that job, which I kind of get where they're coming from. I don't regret it. I think it was very good from a foundational perspective. And look, at the end of the day, when you have a big name on your resume, it always helps you with other things, right? Unfortunately, no matter where you go, they'll always say like, oh, blah, 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 formerly from Goldman, right? Like they always just use that, unfortunately. So there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it wasn't until I think I was at Endowus. It's this local digital wealth and management advisory company where I was really starting to be like, hey, what do I want out of my career, right? I had been Grab for a few years, really enjoyed it. I had been building out different financial products for them, but I also knew I was stuck from a tier perspective, right? It was going to take me a few years to go from like manager to like director. Then this one was like, oh, can be director immediately. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a good step. But I mean, that's where you also get to learn more, right? Because obviously Grab had grown to a certain size already. You're not in the trenches anymore. You're not building out something like with your own hands, essentially. But that gave me the chance to do that. And that's, I think from a career perspective, I think at the end of the day, you want to learn, right? You don't want to be like bored and like sitting there and like not really doing anything with your life. But for me personally, I think I do things because I get to learn and I get to try new things. From a restaurant perspective, I think you alluded to it when we were talking about it before, but I've always mentioned the restaurant was a bit more of a idiotic move or like stupidity or idiocy or naivety or whatever it is.
But tell us about it. How did you even get into it?
No, I found it on a website for sale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a website called businessesforsale.com. It's an established cocktail bar in Tanjong Pagar for sale. I had been there for dates. I was like, oh, great. Good place to bring more dates. By the way, when you own a bar, it's actually where you don't want to bring your dates. You should actually just go and be a customer and bring your dates there, not own the bar and bring your dates there. Because after all, your staff are like, hey, how come you bring someone else in?
Can I bring one too?
That's a good one.
So, but I mean, I think I looked at it from the perspective back then, again, from a naive perspective, that it would be an easy way to make some side income, take some of my money that I made from selling my place in the US and, reinvesting it. I mean, jokes aside, I should have put in the S&P 500. I've done a lot better. It was a baptism of fire. It was a lot of learning. I guess learning for 6 years. It was a costly lesson, but it was a lesson nonetheless.
What were the highlights and lowlights of that?
Wow.
Well, 6 years is a long time.
I can tell you the lowlights very easily. But 6 years is a long time. I think from a highlights perspective, probably the number one thing is the people that you meet, right? Because over the 6 years, you're meeting a lot of people who come in, people who enjoy the food, enjoy the drink, enjoy the company, enjoy your team. I mean, at the end of the day, like F&B is a personal experience, right? It's hospitality. How do you make the other person feel when they come to your place, right? If they have a good time, they'll come back. If they don't have a good time, they won't come back. It's as simple as that. And then how often do they come back? Do you build that sense of familiarity for them? For them to consistently, I guess, come and support. Obviously, the external factors sometimes that come into play. I think from a lowlights perspective, I think after COVID, actually, for us was when it was really tough. During COVID, it was fine. I think a lot of people thought COVID was the killer. COVID wasn't the killer. COVID was actually relatively stable because all of us were stuck in Singapore. We couldn't go anywhere else. And so you had to spend your money all in the same place, like in Singapore. But I think our customer base also lends themselves to people who have a bit more. And so, unfortunately, I think the moment the doors opened, everyone and their mother flew off to different countries. And I think if you look at the general macroeconomic conditions right now, obviously people are spending less also. Which I think you can see just overall in most sectors.
Is that what you're contributing to some of the challenges in the F&B currently? I mean, you're still seeing shutdowns, both hawker as well as high-end restaurants and all that, right?
So I think, I guess two parts to that. If you look at it, there are multiple facets as to why an F&B a restaurant or bar doesn't do well, right? There are three main parts, right? At the end of the day is your revenue high enough is one. And then when you look at it from a cost factor perspective, it is manpower, rental, and cost of goods, right? So I think for us, cost of goods went rampant or went crazy the last few months. I remember talking to my chef once and he was like, "Hey boss, I tell you something." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Hey, the cooking oil price went up by 60%. I was like, wow. 16 or 60? He said 66.0. I was like, oh wow, fuck. Oh, sorry. I mean, oh my goodness. And then I said the expletive, I didn't say chicken's gone up by 35%. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous, right? And then from a manpower perspective, I think that's actually the bigger thing. I think a lot of people have rental issues and that's for other people. For me, it wasn't an issue. I had a good landlord. So I'll never say that the landlord was bad. I had a very nice landlord. But for us, cost of goods was one. And then secondly was our staffing costs, right? At the end of the day, people want to earn more money and I don't begrudge them for that. But I remember I had one chef who kept getting offers outside, which is fine. But I think he went from 2.1K to 2.4K to 2.8K in like 6 months. And I was like, from a value perspective, I guess most people say that's not a lot of money. But when you're looking at it from a percentage perspective as your overall cost, right? It actually goes up substantially. And I think right now, the general way that passes are handed out for workers in F&B sector is still not favorable. It's still very local centric where they say that you really need more locals in the space.
And the cost will be reflective.
Yes. Which is also ironic because no locals want to be in the space because you told all locals, please go to university and go get a white collar job. So it's a bit of a weird situation.
What's the biggest lie that new F&B founders tell themselves? What, in your opinion?
Good question, actually. I don't think it's I get where you're coming from. I think, again, it's not a lie, but it's just like their perspective, right? And the perspective is that, everyone's going to love my food and drink and it's going to be rosy forever, right? The problem with that is that Singaporeans are fickle people. And maybe all people are fickle, but Singaporeans are fickle. Because I'm a Singaporean and I live in Singapore, so I know we are all fickle, right? Which means that they will love the concept for the first 1 or 2 or 3 or 6 months. Then Ben will open something and then you'll be like, let me go over there now, right? Let me go over here now. And you go to all of these different concepts. By the time you circle back to yours, you're like, sorry, no more money because everyone has, this that large circle.
Chasing the new shiny thing.
Exactly, right? Okay. And you do see that, right? I mean, there are a lot of cool concepts that come up. It's great. But then it also kind of dilutes the overall opportunity also.
It's very trend driven, very hype driven. You can see that restaurants, you always have to reinvent, repurpose their brand or even home menu and all that, right? What do you think is the secret sauce to have longevity in the F&B space?
I think if you look at businesses in general, when you're in the middle, you go to the middle to die. And I think that is true for a lot of sectors, including F&B, right? If you're at the top end, you have a few Michelin stars that have been closing. Maybe there were too many of them. But generally, if you're at the top, the people who can spend will always spend. Right? Like omakase in Singapore, people who can afford it can eat it. But the prices for omakase in Singapore now, I might as well buy a plane ticket to go to Japan, eat it, and come back for 1 day. Probably about the same price, right? See, you pay a $400 ticket, spend $100 there, come back, you get a 1 day holiday out of it, right? Exaggeration, of course. But then when you're in the middle, that's the thing, right? You're competing with everyone. You're competing with a Thai restaurant or a Japanese restaurant. And Singapore, as we all know, has like, I don't know, 1 million Japanese restaurants now, right? And so you're competing with all of that. I think where you can succeed is if you are you're doing a hawker. And not all hawkers succeed, but it's also because rentals have also started to get a bit weird there, right? But I think generally speaking, if you're providing normal food at normal prices, I think you can actually do pretty well. Like as long as you keep your margins in check in general and you don't go out of the door with like this crazy rental or whatever cost, then I think you can actually do you can survive and you can do okay. What was the question? I had a second point.
What's your the secret sauce for longevity?
The second is also just to change your concept. If I had to do it all over again, I'll figure out a way to change my concept every year. Because again, fickleness, right? So you do it, you run it out, and then you build the place in such a way where you can, repaint it or modular, essentially. Budget 5K to remodel the place every year or 10K, whatever the amount is, right? And you bake that into your cost. You say, this is how much it's going to cost me, which means I have to make this profit, which means that I can then do that, right? I would change it every year because again, people will come and be like, oh, new concept lah, right? And then they'll say, oh, that's really cool. Like maybe you do an instant noodle concept now, then you switch to shawarma, then you change to chicken rice. I don't know, whatever it is, right? But essentially something where you can change it quite easily.
Very interesting. I think that's what I've noticed, but I don't know how restaurants run. I'm not in that space, but is to kind of really put that as part of your reinvention plan. Every year, new concept, new everything.
And I don't think people really do that. There was one that did that for a while, which is a bar, Junior the Pocket Bar, but they just closed also. That one did it quite well for a while because I think they were able to change the menu and the concept every 6 months. Which was nice, right? Because then you go there and you're like, okay, this is a completely new space, not just the menu.
These are like a very tiring line of business to be in.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's physically tiring for sure, right? I mean,
it's a lot of stuff to...
aside from the overheads that you have to cover and all, this is a physically tiring business also.
I just came back from KL over the weekend and I spent a lot of time in Bangkok as well. One of the things I noticed is here in Singapore, you get a lot of innovation in that high-end restaurant space. Like that's where the turn and concepts come from. Then obviously you get a lot of new hawkers trying to join. But the middle is where you don't see a lot of interesting stuff happening in the casual mid-price point area. Whereas in KL and Bangkok, that's where you see a lot of people trying out restaurants for the first time, new noodle place, new tau fu fa brand in KL called Dao, and they're everywhere. But literally, they took tau fu fa and just repackaged it, gave it new branding and all that, and they're doing really, really well, for example. You don't see really a lot of innovation in that middle lane in Singapore, do you?
You can't because it's too expensive to start up. So I think if you look at it from a pure setup perspective, right? And I've spoken to friends and people who I know in F&B outside of Singapore. And I'll just give you a case in point. It's a friend that was doing home baking here, and he decided to open, and he's doing it right now, a shawarma chain in the Philippines because his sister-in-law is from the Philippines. So I guess it's easier. You obviously know people in the place. And so I was asking him a bit about the numbers, right? And he said, hey, look, at the end of the day, right, my manpower cost in Singapore, average waiter now maybe makes 2,400 Sing. He can pay a local person in the Philippines $400, 400 Sing. Then people will say, oh, but then you can't charge as much. But you're not charging a sixth of the price. You're charging half the price or a third of the price or whatnot. So your margins on that for the hiring versus that is also the same as rental. My rental is this. And so, again, I'm not selling it at exactly the same price that I'm being charged from a rental perspective. So I think that's the difference, because to start something in Singapore, your startup costs are so much higher. KL in particular, I was talking to these people who do a bunch of kitchens, and he said, I choose the malls where they give me a very good rate, and they can pay 500 Sing for rental for a 2,000-3,000 square foot space.
Wow.
Hey, it's 2,000-3,000 square foot in Singapore, we're paying 50K. Okay, 15 maybe, right?
Yeah.
So 500 versus 15, that's 30x, right? Yeah.
But that's detrimental to the industry, right? Because you want dynamic F&B over here as people come in. And I mean, a lot of people go, okay, I'm going to fly to Bangkok for food, try to KL for food, right? And here, without the kind of grassroots movements and innovation, that becomes quite
Which is why you're starting to see it as becoming very cookie cutter. If you go to any mall in Singapore, you'll see Old Chunky, Mr. Coconut, Wok Hei, which has done well, by the way, obviously. But you have the same few chains, right? I mean, I was talking to someone else in F&B during this whole home-based business kerfuffle. And I think she was saying that for them to rent a stall for the Pasar Malam, it's $1,000 a day. Or something like that. Sure, the Pasar Malam is a week, right? Or something like that. But she's like, oh my God, that means I have to make 7K to cover the cost of my Pasar Malam stall rental. Hey, $1,000 in Malaysia will get you 2 months of the stall rental, not
Not a bar.
not a temporary space.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the difference.
I mean, so obviously there's the economics of it, the demand and supply. You also don't want to mess around too much with that. But is there anything the government can do?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're supposed to be a capitalist society,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
And so we allow free market economics to kind of like take its course. But to your point, yes, I mean, they can control it. I mean, HDBs, you have certain parameters in place, even for housing. I think back in the day, our parents could buy like 5 properties and no ABSD, right? Now you buy second property, like ABSD to the T. So yeah, I mean, I think they could do things about it. I think that there are certain things that they could try and control. I mean, I think the fact that you can go and bid for a hawker store rental and say, I want to pay $15,000 for it or $20,000 for it, it's a bit ridiculous. Because shouldn't you say that, okay, for HDB stalls, the most that you can pay for it at Newton is maybe 10K as an example. But if you're an Junit, then the max is 5,000 because it is a different area, right? I mean, if you can do that for HDBs, why can't you do that for rental, right? Sure, the government will say that we can set it because HDB is controlled by us. But I think there are other parameters in terms of real estate that they do put some controls into place. So I mean, I think it'll be good if they put some controls into place in general.
Yeah. Would you ever get back into F&B?
Not in Singapore. I was talking to one of the other F&B owners. I think he was half joking. He said, we should just do a home-based business. I mean, I might do that. I'll do it for fun for a weekend. More as a parody, I think, more than anything. But just to say like, oh my gosh, I think I can do anything because home-based businesses that I guess we won't get into too much, but are completely unlicensed. So, I mean, the 4 of us could go today and just go and start something and there will be nothing stopping us. And then we can market it using the podcast.
This would be a great way to make a point.
Yeah. No, and I think that is the point. I think I was talking to one guy. I think he owns a certain place because it's a good play that we can use on his name, on his cafe name. I think it'll be quite fun. Let's do it like out of someone's house for a weekend.
Yeah.
No one gets food poisoning. Or maybe you hope then that's the point. That's the point you're trying to make. I don't want to be the person doing that.
No, but I heard you on one of the other podcasts. I mean, he did say they do get some level 3 certification.
Oh yes, the radio one. No, so I mean that again, that's dependent on whether you want to or not.
Also,
he did
it's
it himself.
A mandatory thing.
You do not need to do anything. It is recommended that you get a basic food handler's permit, but you do not need to do it. Right. You could sell one tomorrow off your house and you'll be fine.
Interesting. So, I was out yesterday, makan, had a couple of beers, and then I went in Tanjong Pagar, and then went to a dessert place. But, you can physically and visually see that it's a little bit quiet these days.
Oh, it's Saturday yesterday.
Yeah, it's really quite quiet. Do you think there is like a broader shift in terms of social cultures, the ways people are spending less time outside now? It's just like that trend? I'm just curious to get your thoughts on that.
I won't personally comment. I guess you can kind of like see it from statistics that are being published and all that. Well, okay, I guess for myself, I drink a lot less than I used to, like 5 years ago. One, because I owned a bar, so I had to drink. But I meant even more than that, like my friends and I are a different stage of life now, right? Like families, kids, etc. They just don't go out and drink. Or if you want to go out and drink, you're like, hey, you want to come over to my house to have a drink, right? Yeah. The broad strokes are that, Gen Z are just having a completely different type of lifestyle now. Yeah. I mean, like nowadays with my friends, I go to Ice Bar and we drink less and we do high rocks. And so I had wine night last night, and that's why I want to go take a nap later because I'm like, I still need to recover from that. But it's like 5 years, 10 years ago, that would have been just another night out.
I was reading an article in the news that day about a clubbing concept where they drink coffee rather than drinks, right? And that, I guess that's the...
It's not even day. It's like the morning, right in the middle, like 7 a.m. in the morning.
And then you finish and then you go home by like 2 or 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think for people like us in our age group, I mean, I would rather go out at 7, get drunk by like 11 or 12 and then go sleep already, right? Instead of, back in the day where it's like you meet at 10 or 11 and you're like, okay, we'll be home at 4.
Yeah.
You need to take a disco nap before that.
Exactly, yeah. Now you can just go to bed at midnight still and just have a normal day and then you go sleep after that, right? But I mean, I was talking to a friend who does alcohol supply. And he literally sent me the table of like imports that are coming in. I think something like down like 20% or something like that. But I mean, it's not every alcohol, but just different types, right? Whether it's like wine or whiskey or whatever, but just different ones that were down by like 5%, some were down 25% and all that.
I mean, it used to be back in the day, and I came from KL, right? In the 2000s where you would almost be guaranteed ROI in a year if you had an alcohol license, you were sponsored by a Carlsberg or whatever not. In a year, you will make money. 100%. Right. But today, I guess, I mean, and recently with the news of 1880 and such, I mean, that kind of speaks to the entire space, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think 18 in particular, I think the founder himself, it was a bit of an overextension of them where they were a bit overeager on expansion and I think investing both in Bali as well in Hong Kong. I went to the Hong Kong space, it was beautiful, but it was empty. 50,000 square feet of empty space. Also wrong area for them. But I mean, I think in general, spending habits are changing. Because now you're seeing a bunch of ice bath places open. Yes. I can tell you half of them will close next year, right? Because it's a trend. Your OpEx is so high to go and renovate a space and take it, and then suddenly it's going to close.
Yeah.
Like I know one, a friend runs, I won't mention it, but I think 1 year, built it out, ice bath, gym, everything and all that closed. 1 year.
Wow.
Gorgeous place. But it's not about the space, it's just that there are too many that are popping up also.
But same as in food, right? The one thing you see in Singapore more than anywhere else is that if you get one outlet that's working, they kind of open 5 straight away.
Yeah, but you should just stick to 1 or 2 outlets.
You won't make
like,
money.
why do...
Yeah.
I mean, that was what killed us. I'll be completely upfront. We thought that we were doing well. We thought that coming out of COVID, things would be better. So we invested in expansion. I think if we had stuck to 1 outlet, we wouldn't be doing well, but I think we'd be alive. Yeah.
And that's more prevalent here than anywhere else. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the pedal places, right? People are going, okay, I've got 1 location, I'm going to open another 3 locations, and that's what's happening.
Yeah. I think in Singapore, you're just like limited, right? Like there's so many people in Singapore. Like other countries, like I've had friends who have tech companies, one health one and one restaurant tech company.
Yeah.
They did in Singapore. One has completely closed their Singapore business and they're focusing on the US only. Yeah. And then the other one is doing both Asia still as well as the US. But in the US, he says, hey, my restaurant tech in Singapore, what's the most I can close? 60 restaurants at a time. He said in the US, I close 3,000 at a time. Because if you've got 3,000 outlets, it's just the scale for this is way different. And people love to say, oh, Singapore is, your entryway to Southeast Asia. But Southeast Asia is not the US, it's not one country. Yes. It's 10 different countries with completely different cultures and histories and languages and whatnot. And so you cannot say, oh, it works in Singapore or work in Indonesia. Obviously, it's not going to, or KL.
Yeah. Unless you're Hai Di Lao.
Unless you're Hai Di Lao, yes, exactly. Or Din Tai Fung or something like that, then you can do that. But even Hai Di Lao has been closing a couple outlets where they're still doing fine, I'm sure, but making less money or losing money and they close those. So the fact that a chain like that can right size also means that there's something else at play here.
I'm curious, if you were to run F&B outlet like a tech startup, what would improve or what would break in your mind?
As in, what would I do to...
Like if you ran it like a tech startup, what would be better or what would be worse?
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I tried to do that during COVID for our restaurant bar, and that actually worked. But I think there was a certain point where I couldn't figure out what else to do. I'll give you an example. When there were multiple circuit breakers, right? I think there was Heightened Alert 1, Heightened Alert 2. Oh no, circuit breaker, what was the first one? There was a big one. I remember the first one, we said, oh, we need to do cocktails. We didn't have a kitchen then. This was when there was the original bar. And we said, we need to do bottled cocktails. And because we pivoted so fast, we just said that we could do that. And because I knew how to do Google Forms and don't know whatever, and simple stuff, not like crazy stuff, we started selling, and we had some news coverage. We started selling as much in a week in bottled cocktails as we did. But obviously everyone was stuck in Singapore and everyone wanted to get drunk at that point in time. But then when Heightened Alert 1 came along, we knew we had to do something else. We couldn't just do cocktails. And then we did this concept called curry fried chicken. But again, it was something my chef and I had been playing around with. And then we used this website called Auto, really good. We said, oh shoot, we need to test this out. And then we did this fried chicken business. First day sold out, second day sold out, third day sold out, fourth day sold out. We were selling 45 to 50K in fried chicken a month for a few months because we were able to pivot quickly into what people wanted to. I think when you look at F&B or when you look at tech in general, what works is basically failing fast and saying okay, this is not working, what do I try next? The danger in that obviously is you try too many different things and they all fail, then you just fail in general. But I think that's something that I think F&B maybe needs to try a bit more.
It's hard to be agile about it because there's so much sunk cost to start, to your point earlier, right?
So what is not a sunk cost is what you can do in your kitchen. That is the thing that you want to try and play around with essentially. Like, what can I do within the same space? So at a certain point, we were running 3 concepts out of the same kitchen. It was fine. One was the actual sit dine-in, and then the other 2 were delivery only. And that actually worked out pretty well because you were generating multiple sources of income from the same kitchen. Obviously, you got more cost of goods because you've got a broader selection of stuff. But then again, you right size and say, okay, if I fried chicken, how many ways can I do it? Right? I can do it delivery this way. I can do it in a different style for dine-in. So, I mean, there are ways to look at it. But again, when you're looking at it from a tech startup perspective, that is the difference. A tech startup technically can have 0 costs, right? Like as an F&B, you always have costs, unfortunately.
It's not scalable.
Exactly.
And your 60% increase in chicken prices.
Well, I guess the only way you can, the comparison to his point is essentially 60% in cloud costs maybe that go up, right? But even then, it's still not like it probably won't be as substantial, I suppose.
Is that parallel to what you do on the socks and the tire front in terms of cost and scale?
Tire is also fascinating. Okay. Oh, this should be a whole other conversation. Attire. Sorry. I was like, wow, socks and tires are really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar challenge because ultimately you're trying to manage costs over a period of time, right? And I think COVID was also difficult period for retail because even for e-commerce, there was a period of time nobody could go into the office, so you can't fulfill anything, so everything had to be closed. And I remember being challenging because, again, when you work from home, then obviously apparel and like socks, obviously sales went down.
You don't need it.
And we were doing a lot of international stuff before that, and then I think we got cut off, like we couldn't use DHL e-commerce and some of these platforms got closed down, right? So, or it got too expensive. Actually, it got really expensive to ship overseas. So a lot of the international audience were selling through Amazon or just went down from there. But I mean, to your point, I think that's the thing I'm thinking about, right? Where when you run a business, or in this case, like a side hustle, the question of, doing it as a passion versus so there's a lot of effort. It's almost like you don't make life easy for yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I always try to go back to, what's the whole purpose of doing this? And I think maybe my question to you again is, all these things that you stumble upon, are they more passion? Does this start off with a passion? Does it start off with, this is a great business idea? Because passion runs out, after you have some of these insurmountable things that you face, then you go oh shit, why did I start? Why am I making life difficult for myself?
I think it's a good question. The short answer is that it depends on what your personality is at the end of the day. There are people who are completely risk averse, who are never going to do anything outside of their normal day job, and that's fine. And those people actually probably do better because they save their money diligently every day, and then when they die, you're like, wow, they had $10 million or something like that. But it's just like the other jokers who are like, oh, you got a bar, oh, you got a sock business, very cool, I wear your socks, I go to your bar. Then when we kick the bucket, they're like, wow, they were in debt. Right? It's a very different thing, but I mean, that's a personality, right? Are you risk averse? Are you more risk-taking? Are you willing to try different things? And I think for me, in particular, I've always been stimulated by trying new things, right? The difference between trying new things and following through is a whole different ball game, right? There are plenty of people who like to start new things, but they never follow through. And that is the key difference between someone who, I guess, fails or succeeds. I mean, sometimes you still fail to a certain extent, but we followed through as much as we could, right, to that point. And I think when you're looking at it maybe more broadly from a side hustle or entrepreneurship perspective, it's really about being able to say, I will do it for at least X amount of time, right? And then making yourself know that you will do it, right? And then being able to try that out. I mean, I think with socks is cool. I mean, I think everyone thinks that they know a business, which they don't know at all, right? Like for socks, if I were to look at it from the outside, I'll say, hey, very good, you can store it forever, it won't go bad. But I'm sure there are other things that go wrong, whether it's sizing, whether the cost of cotton, I don't know, whatever, or polyester, whatever goes up. So there are other factors that people never really see, right? But it's always rosy on the outside, I suppose.
Yeah. Do you have some level of, okay, this fits into kind of the general direction I'm going in life, and then therefore I'm going to do this? How do you kind of make those decisions?
When I was younger, it was just looks interesting, try lo. As I get older, I guess I do try to be a bit more selective. I mean, one time is a little more scarce now. As you get older, you have more responsibilities and all that. And also you're just older and you're like, I don't want to do so much. I need to take a nap now, right? Back then you didn't take a nap. You're like, I can chug 18 hours and I'm completely fine. I think now when I look at it, I look at what my skills are. But those skills are again built over a period of time, right? It's not like you had those skills from day one. So now what's my skill? I like to write rubbish, right? I like to write all the time. So then I say, what can I do with that? Can I earn some money from that on the side? What can I do with my writing to help people? So that's how I look at it, maybe more from this perspective now. But it was, again, took time to build out that skill set for people to notice it. I think now if I were to do something new, I mean, I'm playing with a few different ideas right now. I'll let you guys know how it goes. But some are more OPEX heavy. Some of them I think have zero OPEX or minimal, essentially. Just test it out and then see how it goes. And obviously I'm leaning more towards the ones that cost less. Right?
I mean, the upside is infinite and downside is capped. I mean, why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. So then again, it's just time, whether you put in enough time to be able to do it. One of my ideas is involving car rental. Then I was like, wow, Singapore is not the right place to do this. Because you can go to KL and do it, and your cars will be a tenth of the price, or in Japan or in Thailand or wherever it is, and it'll be a lot cheaper.
Actually, on that, I know I'm asking a few questions, but what are these? I always think about that in a kind of similar way. I have all these ideas, but Singapore's just not the right place to execute on a lot of them. What's your opinion? Yeah,
I mean, cost is high in Singapore, right? So I guess that what we brought up earlier was two things. One, cost. The second is just that it's hard to scale in Singapore. So you can always use Singapore as a test bed, but it's hard to grow beyond that. Not to say that you can't do it here in Singapore, but I think any company that's ever succeeded in Singapore has always gone overseas. Like when we started a creative, right? Yeah. They did well because they were selling like technology to a global market, not to Singapore only, right? Yeah. Or if you're doing property, property is the only thing in Singapore that you can be completely domestic and anything you do fine, right? But even then, I think those people who did well in Singapore have bought properties in London or Australia or whatever, and then diversified their holdings there too. So actually, good point. I've never thought about that. But I suppose if I were to be completely honest about it, I guess Singapore isn't the best place to really like do a business. I mean, I think we're business friendly. You can go to Accra and set up a company in 5 minutes.
Stability, I guess, right? For new startup completely. But the scale is where's the challenge.
Like I mean, I think all startups in the region have to have their headquarters in Singapore because their VCs will only give them money if they actually set it up in Singapore, right? From a governance perspective. But if you were to look at it from a pure like, I want to build something that will be global.
It's hard, right?
I mean, the government says, why are there no global companies out of here? And like, bro, you gotta create the environment for it, right? Yeah. I mean, what are the two big ones that have come out of Singapore in the past few years? Grab, but that's one, right? And then you have C Group, but then it's more online, it's more digital also.
Razor, maybe.
Razor, a few of them.
Yeah.
Secret Lab, a few of them, I guess, but still again, like far and few between, I suppose.
Correct.
And again, they all went global. They obviously didn't stay.
Yeah. So obviously, you've kind of pivoted a lot, and it sounds like there might be one or two more pivots happening more in reinvention. Like, but what kind, as you kind of shift from one thing to another, what are some of the key skills, tools that you've kind of picked up to help you quickly adapt and move and relearn things, for example?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say like pivots per se. I mean, I think I would like to try and do a couple side hustles that won't take up too much time, although I'm probably like underestimating it again, and then a year from now I'll be like, guys, what the hell, man? I thought it was going to take me 5 minutes a day. Now I'm spending 50 hours a week on it. No, but I think at the end, the biggest thing that I tell people is like two things to answer your question. Is hard work and resilience. At the end of the day, you can be smart, you can have a lot of money, etc. But if you don't know how to work hard and you don't have the ability to be resilient in tough times, you won't be able to pivot and try new things because you don't have the gumption or the ability to say like, I'm going to push through. Like tomorrow someone says, the price of cotton has gone up by 1,000%. And you say, I have to shut down my stock business. No, do I really have to shut down my stock business? Do I just go to someone who doesn't realize it's gone up yet and buy out the entire cotton supply? I mean, there are multiple things that you can do, right? To do that. You have to be smart enough to say, okay, I really cannot do anything else. I should shut this down and then, live to fight another day rather than die and not be able to do something else. But I think people that underestimate the value of hard work. Yeah. People always think things are easy and they just give up.
So you're walking to a lecture hall in SMU, both give a lecture to SMU or whichever polytechnic or whatever. What's the advice in that on that front, right? Like in terms of what they should do, especially today when work life is going to change, AI is going to completely change how we do things, for example, it's going to get challenging. What's your advice in terms of how do you adapt? And
it's a graduation speech.
Quiet quitting. I mean, we're not going to talk about it from
I'm with you on work hard bit. But what do you say to these guys?
I mean, I was reading this or watching this documentary about how like in China, they're starting to do these retirement villages for young people, right? Where essentially they're like 20 or 30 and they're like, I don't want to live in the big cities. I just want to retire. And I just want to live in this commune. And then we all support one another and farm and all that. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. You need to take the time to figure out what you want to do in life. The definitions for success for all of us for far too long has been get a good white collar job, make good money, BTO, buy a condo, get a car, pop out 2 or 3 kids and die, right? I mean, that's the current, it's still the same thing to this day. But I mean, maybe I'll take one more step back. I don't know your circumstance. I don't know whether you've come from a rich or a poor family. I don't know whether you have $1 million to your name or whether you worked your way to SMU because you lived in a rental HDB, but you did a really good job. Worked really hard and you did that. So it's hard to give broad bits of advice, but I would say do something that you enjoy, right? I don't necessarily mean follow your passion. Do something that you enjoy. Do you enjoy going to work every day, whether it's your own company or whether it's someone that you're working for? Do you find joy in what you do? Do you go and say, I enjoy working with my colleagues? There's going to be something that you like about it, right? Yeah. And I think the second thing is know what you want. If you want more money, go for it. Then please go and work as an investment banker, work 18 hours. And then and make the money and do it. But if you know that you want a chill life, then just don't expect to make a lot of money also, right? I mean, you have to set your expectations based on what you want in life, right? Don't say that I want to be a school teacher, but I want to live in a GCB.
What do you tell your kids?
What do I tell my kids? Try your best. You will figure out as you go along. Actually, I was on the flip note of this, right? When you do all these things, when do you know it's time to move on?
Well, for the bar itself, I was just like, wow, really no money. Like, I'm too much in debt. I need to get out of that. That one was quite straightforward, where I just said, well, if I do the math on this, there's like literally no runway anymore. Like, as in cash ran out, right? So that was easy. Although it took me a lot longer than I should have. I should have walked away.
Loss aversion kind of.
There was two things. One, we had investors, and I didn't want to disappoint them. Two, I had staff. Didn't want them to lose their jobs, which I realized after that, F&B very easy to find jobs. So I didn't have to worry so much about that. But yeah, loss aversion is definitely one thing. I think the second part of it is just wanting to succeed. Stubborn. Like, I succeeded in enough things in life. How am I failing at this, right? I have the tech background. Why can't I pivot? I have this financial backing. How could I have failed? So, I mean, there are different aspects to it. Pride at the end of the day, hubris to a certain extent.
In terms of your personal growth, because you've done so much, many lessons, ups and downs in your career, the restaurant and all that. What are you doing now currently in terms of personal growth? It's like, is it the mind, the body, and I'm just curious to know. You're doing anything
body-wise, like just making sure that I definitely gym more, that I'm more conscious about that. Really trying to drink less. From a mind perspective, trying to start to read again. I think for a period of time I didn't read. Now I'm trying to at least get my Kindle out and read through a couple of books. Travel when I can, obviously, both for work and for fun. But I think right now, because work is quite busy, to be honest, it's like a lot of like heads down and just like hustling right now and getting things done. It's also a newish role for me. I'm running a team. I have to make sure that they are doing their jobs also. So that actually does take quite a lot of time right now at this current juncture.
Nice. Any rituals or habits that you kind of have?
No, I'm not one of those people who say, I wake up at 5 a.m. and then I meditate for 15 minutes and I run for 2 hours. No, I'm not that intense. And then I don't do breath work and then ice bath and all that and stuff like that, right? The routine can be good, but routine can also kill your spirit, right? I mean, you also want to do things. On the flip side, sometimes I wake up like, oh crap, I should have gone to the gym, but too late. Life is for fun. You can't just do everything in life and then not enjoy it. So you do have to try and find a balance. Like, would I love to just not drink at all because like it would help me with my gym work? Yes,
of course.
But like sometimes I just want to get drunk with friends. It's fun.
Yes,
then you laugh, and then you go to bed and you wake up the next morning with slight regrets, but you also had a great time with your friends. So balance is very key. I think a lot of people try to take things to extreme, like whether they ice bath and meditate at 5 a.m. every day or run ultra marathons. If it's your thing, great, but it's not for everyone.
What about because in the AI and crypto space, most of the people you deal with are going to be startup, right? People who just had companies for the last 1-2 years or less even. What kind of characteristics do you see in some people you deal with that go, these are the ones that we know are going to succeed and move far and scale, for example? Are there certain characteristics that stand out more than others?
It's a good question. With AI in particular, it's both. Like, one at the end of the day, like if your technology is better, then your technology is better, right? But then why was your technology better? One, either you were very smart, two, you fell into it, or three, you worked very hard, right? But with technology, more often than not, it's the first one, right? Because you can work hard, but if you don't have the right technology, you can hustle, but at the end of the day, you can't do much of it, right? So I think with AI, it's a bit different in the sense that someone who came out with it has to be also smart enough to know that maybe they need a business person to do it for them, to actually be the CEO, not them, right? As an example. So it's slightly different when it comes to that space in particular.
Yeah.
Because
I thought what the co-founder on Manus was on
Tao
on stage, I thought what was interesting about his thing, and we don't talk about it enough, is knowing how to pivot to your point, but maybe not even move off. But
because Manus is their second business. Their first one is more like a IM or something.
IM, but even in between, he said that they were working on a product for 6 to 8 months or something like that, and realizing after 8 months, they kind of fell into it,
actually.
Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, having that kind of obsession on what works, what doesn't work, and quickly pivoting from there. I wonder how much of that do you see around? Because I think, if anything, that's probably what's going to make them succeed more than anything else, having that obsession on, either the quality or the product or the engineering.
Well, I mean, that works for any sector, right? AI, pharmaceuticals, whatever. Half the time, things happen because it's an accident where you're working on something, then you realize that the output for it is actually better for another use case, right? Then the answer to that is actually not just that you are willing to pivot, but that you can actually recognize it. You cannot be so stubborn and say, I must keep doing this over and over again. When the pot of gold is literally right next door, that you've been like, I don't know, maybe you've been hammering away at carbon. And you're like, I must compact this carbon. Then it becomes diamond, but you don't really realize that it's a diamond. Then you're like, what's a stupid shiny thing? It's very pokey and it keeps hurting me. But you didn't realize that it's actually something way more valuable. And maybe you have to be, I guess to your point, you have to be smart enough to recognize.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he had a whole team, right, that was behind him as well, just quite a fascinating story.
Understood what their AI, what their technology was doing that was actually changing.
Yeah, but sometimes you have that momentum or investors behind you go, I can't change because of that, but having that wisdom to go, okay.
Yeah, but good investors will let you. I mean, investors at the end of the day, especially if you're a VC investor, not a PE investor, you're really betting on the founder. So you have to believe that the founder can actually pivot in the way. If not, no point betting in the person. Then just go into the PE business, buy a stock business, and then like run that, right? But because you know that that will work well and that you can generate X amount of alpha from that every month because you know that this is the profit margin, that's what I can build.
Yeah.
If you're doing any sort of like angel investing or tech investing, it's really a founder bet, not a company. Because the technology can be amazing, but if the founder doesn't know how to build or scale or pivot, then you're dead in the water.
So what else can we expect from you for next 12, 24 months? What are you working on next?
Well, I'm talking to Manus about it right now. Meaning, as in, I'm like literally talking to the to the agent, as in the computer, and trying to like run out some of that. I mean, the next 12 months is one like Token 2049 is definitely going to be the main focus. So I think it's really getting that off the ground. We are scaling quite quickly, and so to be able to make that a success, especially in 100 days or so, is going to be something that's going to be the main focus. I think on the side, it's more of two different things. Like one being, I think I'm realizing more and more that it's easier to be a voice for the F&B community. So when I talk to a lot of my F&B friends, the reason why this is actually okay for me to do is because I don't own an F&B anymore. A lot of them are unwilling to, or they're terrified of speaking out because when they say one wrong thing, people boycott them, right? But for me, I know the business, but I have the benefit of talking about it from a slightly external perspective. And I think one of the things that I've realized is that I'm fairly successful in the corporate side, right? Which means you can say things where people won't like shit on you because they're like, oh, I still want to be a friend because of this, right? Whereas for a lot of people, unfortunately, people will try to bully others, right? And I'm lucky enough where you want to bully me, I'm sure there are people who are way bigger than me, but if you bully me, I'll push back because I have the ability to do that versus my F&B friends who can't do that, right? And so I try to utilize that to a certain extent to help others.
With great power comes great responsibility.
With very small power comes okay responsibility.
Where do you think this conversation around HBB is going to go?
How about where I would like it to go?
Sure.
I would like it to go is that they just put like some very minute, I guess, regulations around it. I.e. like just have a basic food handler's permit, which you can get using your Skills Future credit, by the way. It takes 1 day or 2 days, I think, essentially. And then I think more on the licensed F&B side, all again that the players are saying for us, just like, don't be so niao lah. Don't have like some really weird rules around things where they're very pedantic about certain things.
There's something you can't disagree with, right? One is register. Right?
Register, that's all. Actually just say like, oh, this is my home-based business.
Exactly. Register, get some level of, so that at least the consumer also know that hygiene and all that kind of stuff is taken care of. And then secondly, as you get to a certain scale, then how do you manage
Then you put some parameters into place. I mean,
those things you can't disagree with, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's far and few between, but there are a few of these places that make close to $1 million or make $1 million a year. You're telling me that they shouldn't be registered businesses? I mean,
GST itself is really
exactly right. We all know this as business owners. The moment you hit 1 million, you need to pay GST. But I don't know. Maybe let's do another business. Like we figure something out. Right? Just run out of the house, and then you see how far you go, right? Because you're telling me that I can stretch the boundaries. Try it out. See how it goes. So we'll definitely invite you guys. Like, if I do a pop F&B, see how it goes.
Thank you. Done. I love the guy on that radio show that was calculating it's not possible to make 200 pizzas a day. That was an awesome conversation.
No, but then when he said that, I was like, they're clearly not at a home-based scale anymore. Like.
They have industrial machines at home and stuff.
Talking before, like he was a really nice guy, by the way, and we were just chatting on back. There's no way that they can hand me 200 pizza, like the dough. It's like either they're doing an industrial kitchen or they got their meat doing it at the back, right? Where they're both are illegal.
The math isn't mathing.
Yes, he said that. I think the math wasn't mathing or something. I was like, I fully agree with you because for him, he was an actual proper home-based business that was within certain boundaries, right? But obviously, there's the spirit of the law, letter of the law, and then just like no law.
I think as with everything, people try to push as close or to the boundary as possible whenever parameters are unclear.
Which do you guys ever do that? Do you guys ever try and push? Because I've always tried to like stay within the boundaries, and now I'm starting to realize that screw it lah. I'm just going to start trying to push the boundaries a bit more.
Instead of asking for permission, you ask for forgiveness.
Because what's the worst you do? Say, oh, please correct this within 5 days. I'm going to start doing that.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's kind of the theme of this conversation that we're trying to do, right? I mean, how do you, as things change, how do you start to reinvent and how do you look, and there's no way you can reinvent just within the boundaries, right? You have to kind of start pushing it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for those like university students, this is for them to like just try it. It's a time to experiment.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, one of the coffee places that's doing very well, that sells like 100 cups of coffee a day, I'm glad that they're doing it. But again, it's just like, not for them actually, but more for the government. Boundaries lah, huh?
Maybe one last question from me. I mean, so when we started the conversation, you said like the main thing about the different things that you've done is the learnings. What are some of the, just 2-3 things that you've gone and say, okay, these are my key learnings that will take me forward?
I think one, I was listening to this Conan O'Brien talk once when he was like wrapping up the Saturday Night Live or whatever it was. I think he said one line that sticks to me and I tried to apply that, and it's like, work hard and be kind and amazing things will happen. That's just like, work hard, which we were talking about, be nice to people, and then generally things hopefully will work out. I think secondly, in terms of learnings, I don't think I'm smart enough to like distill it into like an amazing talking point. You have to try lah. I think a lot of the time people are afraid to try. They're not willing to try different things. They say, oh, it'll take too much effort, time, money. There are different excuses. And this can be a business, or it can be fitness, or it can be different aspects of life. But again, I think we talked about it briefly. Like, life is fun. Life is for living. Life is for us to try different things. Life is for you to travel and, I don't know, explore a new part of Singapore. I mean, sometimes I go to a new part of Singapore, I'm like, wow, I'm an idiot. Like, I should have gone to, I mean, this is not a good example because I actually like going there, like Joo Chiat, or I should go to Punggol, or I should go to Chua Chu Kang or whatever. And I'm like, I don't go there often enough. I go to Japan more often than I go to Chua Chu Kang. But I should go there more often because there's actually so much to see, right? So, I mean, it's nice
I don't know how true that stat is probably is for many Singaporeans.
Right? It's probably Singaporeans. It's actually more people probably go to Japan than they go to Chua Chu Kang, unfortunately.
Unless you live there.
I mean, I think last year I went to Japan 3 times. I think I went to Chua Chu Kang 0 times. But I think from that lens, we just need to try new things, and we just need to explore and like have fun doing it, and not be so coddled and stick within a certain thing and not try.
I have a flip of the question since we're called Offscript. You talked about BYU and your school and all that, right? And I think a bit about your mom and sort of her sort of perception of what you should be doing. What are the things that you had to sort of unlearn as you grew up, like from school to when you worked, to all these things that you're doing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think on the flip side, I've also had a dad who's been quite chill, like in terms of trying new things. So I think I've always been a bit more like him, a bit more maverick when it comes to doing things. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, my mom is actually good in the sense that she also puts in, like, I think I've also learned from her where you also cannot go completely off the deep end, like, because you can also get burned quite badly if you do that. In terms of unlearning, learning is actually learning what you like. And that's doing what you like. Like, why are you doing what your mother or father or uncle or auntie likes? Like, just do what you like, because that's what you're going to be good at. Because you're passionate about it. And this is not that whole like, oh, you passion play. It's just like, do you actually enjoy it? And if you enjoy it, then you're going to generally be happy. Goldman was fine, don't get me wrong, but I learned more at Uber in 3 months than I learned at Goldman in 2 years because it was so fun. There was crazy things that we were doing every day, and we were breaking shit and we were trying different things and all that. And that was super fun. And that's when I realized that I preferred to do things in a more startup environment, and why I continue to look at careers that provide that level of ambiguity. Like, I cannot be, I think I interviewed at another bulge bracket bank, like in between, and I was sitting there in the middle of like waiting for another person to come, and I was wearing a suit. I was like, wow, I really cannot wear a suit anymore. And then it was as simple as that. It was just like, man, I don't want to wear a suit.
Love it.
I want to wear a Uniqlo t-shirt and it slacks to the office every day. But I don't want to wear a suit. And people might call that simplistic. But I was just like, I realized, oh, I don't like that environment. Right? Even if they pay me a certain amount, I 100% will go. But I think for the amount that they probably going to offer, I was like, okay, about the same amount of money.
Is there a long-standing belief that you've held for a long time that has recently or changed? In terms of like, or maybe since when you were young or through school, something that you've always thought this is the way, or this is a sort of grounded as a belief, and then maybe recently or the last couple of years you've questioned it or you've turned that around?
I used to be really judgmental and still am to a certain extent. But I think I've tried over the past couple of years to be a bit more open-minded to people's points of view. It's very easy to get into an argument with someone or talk to someone from your perspective. And you're seeing one side of the coin, you're seeing one side of the cube, and you don't see the other side at all. I think I've looked at it from that perspective because I realized that when I'm trying to argue about something, I realized that people are looking at me saying, oh my gosh, this is the most close-minded guy in the world because he only has one perspective. But you realize that life is not black and white. Like, it's a myriad of colors, right? It's 50 shades of gray, it's 100 shades of gray. There's so many different colors when it comes to life in general. And I think it's very easy to judge people. It's very easy to just say that my point of view is always going to be right. I think I've tried to be a bit more understanding, a bit more to that point around looking at other people's perspectives also.
Cool. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. It's been an enjoyable conversation.
Appreciate it.
And we'll love to have you back, but looking forward to creating more of the stuff on the home-based business over the next few weeks, I imagine.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
And a couple conferences that you have coming up.
Yeah, and the water thing, which I think will go live in like, I don't know, a minute or two, and then we'll see like whether it goes anywhere.
All right, then we'll invite you back for that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks so much
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. You're awesome having you here.
Thank you. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thanks.
it.
All right. That's a wrap. So thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned for more episodes coming right up. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
man.